It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of July 10th, 1992. As you can see, I got the original setup back up here, and it's because we have more than a couple of movies to look at. We have 4 movies to look at today, each one with a very interesting story of their own, for the most part. But we'll get to those as we go along. Let's go ahead and get started and start with the first movie that we have here, the biggest new release of the weekend. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren in the action thriller Universal Soldier. So you can see also of note here that this is directed by Roland Emmerich, and this is kind of the movie that launched him into the stratosphere of Hollywood, because before this he had only made a couple of movies that were less than successful, but after Universal Soldier became a pretty big success despite mostly mixed reviews, he would later go on to direct bigger hits like Stargate, and then later on, of course, Independence Day. And I've not been a big fan of Roland Emmerich's movies over the last couple of decades, but he hasn't made he's made mostly bad movies, but he's made a couple of decent ones. And this one's definitely one of his better movies, in my opinion. It is it is very much kind of a Terminator 2 type of clone. In fact, this whole movie, the marketing, and if you look at the commercials for this, advertised this as from the studio that brought you Terminator 2, and I guess they were hoping to have that kind of similar success to it, but Terminator 2 was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but this movie still made a ton of money. It made $95 million worldwide over a $23 million budget and spawned a franchise of its own. So it did have its success, and it was a very enjoyable film overall. It's a good, fun action movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, when these two work off each other very well, it can get very silly at times, very over the top, but there is a fun factor to all that There is a fun factor here to this movie that works very well here, and you can definitely see it in those clips right there. It's like I said, it's very formulaic. It's a very Terminator 2-esque type of film, but it does work. There are a lot of good action sequences in this movie that still hold up to this very day. There is still a lot of fun elements to the film. It's an overall enjoyable movie. In terms of Roland Emmerich's movies that he's made in the past, this is definitely one of the ones that still holds up over 30 years later. It's a movie that, if you want to see Roland Emmerich at his best, this is definitely one of his best movies. Universal Soldier, definitely worth checking out. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the movie that has probably the most interesting and bizarre production history of any movie in recent memory. Well, I take that back, but the story of what happened behind the scenes of this particular film that we're looking at next is very... We'll delve into it once I show you the trailer for it. This is Cool World. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about with this movie, and let's start with the production history behind it, because this actually begins about 2 years prior to this film's release in 1990. Ralph Bakshi decided to make another animated film, so he pitched the idea of Cool World to Paramount Pictures, where Bakshi had worked as the final head of the studio's animation division. He wanted to pitch it as an animated horror film, the idea being that the movie is about a cartoon and a live-action human having sex and conceiving a hybrid child who visits the real world to murder the father who abandoned her. Bakshi said the studio bought it within seconds, and just from that idea alone, that makes this a whole lot more interesting. This is a movie that's an idea that could be very, very interesting, especially in 92, if you're trying to go for a darker, more edgier Roger Rabbit type of movie. Unfortunately, that's not the movie we get, and in fact, Bakshi himself actually got really screwed by Paramount Pictures, because when they were building the sets in Las Vegas, one of the producers, Frank Mancuso Jr., who was the son of the president at the time, Frank Mancuso Sr., he had the script rewritten in secrecy, and Bakshi was just basically given a script written by 2 different people that was not even close to what the original film was supposed to be. And the idea was that the producer, Mancuso Jr., wanted to move away from the horror films that Paramount had been making, because this was a studio that also did the Friday the 13th franchises, and wanted to produce a film, quote, about what happens when someone creates a world, becomes defined by it, they can't escape, and it's a film about being trapped by your own creation, which, concept-wise, that could work, but it's important to remember that Bakshi pretty much got screwed because of this, and Bakshi even got into a fight with Mancuso and punched him in the mouth. That's how pissed off he was, but Of course, Paramount threatened Bakshi with a lawsuit if he refused to complete the film, and he basically just went along with it. Bakshi got screwed big time. There's no denying that he got screwed big time. They gave him a completely different script to work with that was nothing like what he wrote. He threatened to quit, and Paramount said they would sue him. And we start getting into how this movie became what it eventually became, because Bakshi wanted to originally cast Drew Barrymore and Brad Pitt in the leading roles. Brad Pitt was cast as the other live-action character, Frank Harris, you see in the trailer here, and Gabriel Byrne was cast as Deeves. Kim Basinger was cast as Holly. That was what Drew Barrymore was supposed to play. And according to Bakshi, Basinger had attempted to rewrite the film again halfway through the production because she thought it would be great if she was able to show the picture in hospitals to sick children. And Ralph Bakshi literally said, Kim, I think that's wonderful, but you've got the wrong guy to do that with. And first of all, you want to sell this movie to kids? I mean, really? First off, she was just in Batman. That was more suitable for kids than this movie was. Hell, My Stepmother is an Alien, which he had made just before that, was more suitable to show the kids than this. Yeah, Basinger was just basically letting the fame that she had gotten in the late 80s get the best of her back, and then apparently also Drew Barrymore certainly would have been a more interesting character and casting choice instead of Basinger, especially if you just seen her in Poison Ivy at the time. And really, there's just so much in this movie that is so crazy behind the scenes that it's just amazing that this movie is one of those interesting failures that comes around every once in a while. There's a lot of ambition to it, but when the final project comes out, it's just a complete mess all around. But at the same time, you got to admire for the stuff that it did work. I will say this, going for the movie, the animation in this, while incredibly chaotic and over the place, can sometimes really be amazing to look at. You got all these different visuals and backgrounds that are impressive to look at, with some homages to Disney, Looney Tunes, comics, Fleischer Studios, Terry Toons. All that is in here, and most of the time when it's not just using random scenes and dialogue, because it is used randomly, like somebody like Holly will be talking to the Brad Pitt character, and all of a sudden you'll just see random animations coming all over the place for no reason whatsoever. And other than that, it is great to look at. This is Bakshi doing some of his best animation he's done for a movie yet, and yet it's one of his most polarizing films he's ever made. But, you know, as we talked about in the past, visuals do not make the movie, and the script is really where the movie collapses on its own, mostly because of what happened on the first day of shooting. It's like the scriptwriters who were brought in had no idea what to do either. The characters are so poorly written, you cannot connect to any of these characters in any way, shape, or form. Basinger's Hollywood is just basically just a one-sided character who wants to feel the touch of a Noid, as they say, the real humans are calling this, sexually, and when she finally does and becomes a human herself, has nothing else to work with. Brad Pitt is essentially written as a hypocritical cop in this movie, who's basically going after this Noid for something he wants to do with his own animated girlfriend, too. Which, I mean, it's like if Donald Trump accused Hillary Clinton of doing things that Trump did himself. Okay, I'm stepping away. I'm not getting political on this one, but you get the idea. It's very hypocritical, to say the least. But, and then you get to Gabriel Byrne, who really has nothing to do in this movie. First off, he creates this world when he was in prison, and Byrne was about 42 years old at the time, and Brad Pitt gets zapped into the world in 1945, and it really doesn't make sense. His character is written so poorly that they have to have other people literally speaking his own backstories for him. I counted in this movie. There's 4 times in this movie where another character is going through his backstory, and every single time, he never has to say anything. He has literally no dialogue in this. He only speaks in one-word sentences, cliched riddle lines, and it's like the movie itself doesn't even give a crap about him. Then why the hell did you even put him in this movie? So much so that by the final action scene in the movie, he's not even there anymore. Like, he literally turns into there's a scene, the final act of the movie has Jack just leave after he's been given the opportunity to be a hero that comes out of nowhere, essentially replaced with Banana Man, right down with having him voiced by Maurice LaMarche, who has like several characters in this movie. But it's like the movie was like, okay, we're tired of your non-acting ass. We're getting somebody in here to line this up. And sure enough, Gabriel Byrne never comes back after that scene. That's how much of this movie does not give a crap about anybody. Even the movie ends on this weird, but on this wacky note. This movie starts off as this incredibly dark and edgy movie, but then by the end, they just go for the most wacky, insane, and happiest endings they could possibly come up with. There's a part in the movie that is towards the end of the film. Brad Pitt's character gets killed off by Holly as she's flickering back and forth from human to doodle, and then later on, Frank's partner takes him back to the cruel world to his girlfriend, and then she asked him, was she a doodle when she killed him? And basically what happens is that when you get killed by a doodle, you become a doodle yourself, which never gets explained at any point before then, but it's happening here, and guess what happens? Brad Pitt's now a cartoon character, so there was a purpose to that scene where she's flickering back and forth from human to doodle. A bad purpose, but a purpose nonetheless. This movie is just it's a weird movie. Don't get me wrong, this is a bad movie, but it's a uniquely bad movie. It's a uniquely bad movie because we are literally seeing a director being forced into directing a project he wanted nothing to do with. This is one of the most uniquely bad movies I've ever seen. You could look at this movie and director Ralph Bakshi having no idea how the hell to make this movie with this reworked script he was given. But on that front, I would say that this is one of those so bad it's good type of movies, like the ones that you should watch just for how unusually unique it is. And it really is an unusually unique, interesting failure that came out of this movie. It's not a good movie by any means, but if you're looking for something very WTF and just all over the place, and the effort being put in there when there was really no intention of putting any effort in there by the people behind the scenes, this is that movie to do it with. This is actually, if you want a so bad it's good type of movie, Cruel World is definitely something that you should definitely check out. I mean, it's amazing how all over the place this movie is. It's a bad movie, but a so bad it's good type of movie. That's the best way to describe this film. So I told you that was going to be a long one. That was Cruel World. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Alec Baldwin and Meg Ryan in Prelude to a Kiss. Actually, this could be another one that could be a so bad it's good type of movie, but well, okay, first off, I haven't seen this movie. I can't really, as usual, I can't really comment on it too much, but that trailer really says a lot of interesting things that could be very good, but considering that I've never heard anybody really talk about this movie, and if you want to know, here's what I found out about the plot. It's basically following a conservative man played by Alec Baldwin and a liberal woman played by Meg Ryan. That's literally what it says on the Wikipedia page right here. They fall in love, and on their wedding day, Rita, who fears life's uncertainties and the cynical of the world, is kissed by this elderly stranger, played by Sidney Walker, causing their souls to switch places. Peter realizes the change and reunites with Rita, now in the form of this elderly man, and while trying to figure out how to restore his wife, Peter tries to connect with his wife despite her new form. There definitely could be some good ideas here. That premise sounds very intriguing, but it also sounds very similar to Ghost. In fact, Fox basically, this is pretty much their attempt to try to copy the success of Ghost, and needless to say, it didn't work out too well because this movie has been largely forgotten. But I don't know. I mean, it's an idea that could be interesting, but I've not heard anybody really say that this is truly a great film. Most of the reaction I see for this is just a very mixed bag. Some people really like it, some people really don't. It's just depending on how you're going to take. It just really depends on how you feel about what's going on in the situations in this movie. And like I said, I can't really say too much about it, but I will say my interest is a little bit piqued. I am curious to see what I would think about this movie. So maybe one day I might definitely look at this one. But as for right now, can't really comment on it too much. But could go either way with this one, I think. So that's Prelude to a Kiss. Let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is The Best Intention. So this is kind of a semi-autobiographical film on Ingmar Bergman's life, because this was written by him, and this is basically telling the story of the complex relationship between his parents, who are renamed in this movie but retain their true surnames. The film basically follows the courtship and the difficult early years of their marriage until the point where Ingmar's mother becomes pregnant with their second son, and you're basically just following kind of it's like I said, it's a semi-autobiographical film about Bergman's family life, and I haven't really, like I said, I can't really comment on it because I haven't seen it, but I don't know. It doesn't look too bad, but unlike with Prelude to a Kiss, it doesn't really look like anything I need to rush out and see quickly. Um, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually kind of decent, but like I said, I haven't seen it. Can't really comment on it too much, so did want to acknowledge that it came out this weekend. So that's the best intentions. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll look at the middle of the month, July 17th, 1992, with 3 new movies, including the sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. We also have Melanie Griffith in the action thriller A Stranger Among Us, and Jack Nicholson and Ellen Barkin in the comedy misfire Man Troubles. 3 movies we'll look at next time. So with that said, though, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, take care.